Hi, everyone. My name is Era, and I'm the co-host of the Tamil Innovators Spotlight. And I'm bringing you July's edition with all the way over from Singapore, where it's currently very early in the morning, with Prakash Somosundram, and very interesting entrepreneur. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's had an exit, and he's currently, just like a lot of people, in the interesting world of Web3. He is a CEO and co-founder of Enjinstarter. So Prakash, I won't take up too much of your thunder. So why don't you let people know who are kind of listening in terms of, a bit about your background.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Ara. So yeah, my name is Prakash. I'm based here in Singapore. Sloanese by descent. My dad was born here, so that makes me second gen. I'm 45 with two young kids, 7 and 9. And yeah, love to share more about my business journey with you today. And also hopefully use this as an opportunity to inspire others who are listening.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you're obviously in an interesting space where a lot of talent and just resources and just energy are going towards. So, but before we get into, obviously the Web3 part of your journey, obviously I want to get into Yoke very briefly, just because, I think it was like something you worked on for 12 plus years. There was an acquisition, which is always nice after working on something so much. So tell us a little bit quickly about, I guess, what Yoke was, and then, how you were able to stick it out for 12 years until that exit happened, and then how that acquisition actually happened as well with WPP.
Sure. So the genesis of Yoke was actually from a very dark place. I had left school and started a company during the dot-com period. Also in the same business, it was called Angel Dynamics, and we were very focused on building websites for other dot-com companies. So we were providing a service, got together a few people who are very talented, and we kind of converted, corporate literature into web content. But of course, when the dot-com burst, we followed suit very, very closely. And that's where, I went into like 4 months of depression, Dean shave, just didn't want to go out, right? I literally lost a baby, and, because you're so early in business, you kind of define who you are with what you are doing. And that was a very, very tough period. And then a couple of months later, I found the energy and found the motivation to get out of that dark place, found a new group of partners to kind of get along with. And that's kind of when we started Yoke. Literally the day that we started the company was in September 11, 2001. My brother was studying in New York. He was calling me and, he's saying, everything is looking so dark and what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm starting a new company. But what kind of motivated me to start Yoke, was something around creativity. We felt that regardless where the economy is, whether it's a recession or whether it's a bull market, there will always be a need for creative solutions. And that's kind of where we pushed ourselves to be at the forefront of technology, always embracing new developments, trying out new technologies, new hardware. And that's kind of what defined Yoke. But of course, it was a roller coaster of a ride for about 10 years before we were acquired by WPP, which is the largest communication network globally. We became part of Grey Advertising. So if you watch the series Mad Men, I think it's in episode 2, they will actually mention Grey Advertising, and we became their digital outfit for Southeast Asia. And that was kind of our journey from start to exit. And then I stayed on for about 3.5 years post-acquisition before I came out, and I went on a sabbatical for a year before I actually started getting deeper into the startup space.
And during, that roller coaster of a ride, for almost 12 years, obviously you had a successful outcome, which is very rare, regardless of size or whatever it is. Like just having that outcome is very rare. So at any point before you got to that successful exit, were you contemplating shutting it down or just giving up or just moving on to something else? Or were you like, I'm going to stick this out until the very end?
No, constantly we'll be sitting under the tree literally and, figuring out, are we going to give up or are we going to continue? In the early days, especially because we started during a recession, it was really tough getting work. And there were months that we couldn't pay ourselves. And that was very, very challenging. But during those periods, especially during the tough periods, we constantly reminded ourselves that we were living our dream. And that opportunity to actually define what that dream was and, the terms that we want to live life on was the motivating factor for us. But I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of build this superhero power of having a very thick skin. And that kind of pushes you on to, ask more people for help, continuously knocking on doors, even though doors get slammed on you, literally. And that's one way that we kind of pushed ourselves. But it was never easy. And there were constantly times that we wanted to give up or join, full-time work and maybe kind of do that on the side. But because we also did it as a team, we could collectively motivate ourselves. And one person is down, the rest of the team will come up and pick each other up. And that's kind of how we maintain our sanity.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad you stuck it out because we're here today. So like obviously after this exit, you did a number of different things, advisory roles, working on different projects. And then, as many people these days, or just like many people in the world of entrepreneurship, Web3 is where you landed in terms of creating a new company. So I guess maybe before you talk about Enjinstarter, like what got you excited about Web3 and even like pursuing and creating something in this world?
Sure. So following my exit, I started getting a lot more involved in the startup ecosystem. I was involved with ecosystem development, as well as I was helping other companies raise capital, as well as helping them plan their exit, right? One of the key things is that people rush into starting a business because they're excited about an idea, they're passionate about solving a problem, but no one really plans how is it that they're going to be doing an exit. And that's the area that I decided to start focusing a lot on. In 2016, I was fortunate to be part of a roll-up IPO that we did in NASDAQ in Sweden. And that again showed me the way that we can leverage capital markets in new and innovative ways towards raising capital. That journey kind of led me into the blockchain space. And my brother was one of the early adopters of Bitcoin as a form of payment here in Singapore. I kind of saw that journey that he went through. And I wasn't participating. I wasn't actually buying Bitcoin as early as my brother. But that's when I started getting more and more into crypto. It started out by us helping other projects organize events here in Singapore that later on led on to investment opportunities. I did my own ICO. And again, it's another wilder roller coaster ride, right? In the early days of crypto and blockchain, you meet all kinds of people, some with good intention, some bad actors. And, every day is a fresh day, right? And that was the journey that kind of led me to where I am today, which is a lot more focused on Web3. So I started Enjinstarter. We're a launchpad that's focused on blockchain gaming, entertainment, as well as the Metaverse. We started the company in April last year. We raised some money on tokens, and we actually got into the business and we identified companies that we want to invest in. We put a small token in them, and then once we have invested, excuse me, we help them raise capital. We help them with community acquisition, and once they're ready, we put them on our platform, and our community participates and actually help them invest, and then kind of grow the business from there.
So you're almost like an incubator of sorts for
promising.
promising
Yeah, so we're an accelerator with a Kickstarter-like platform, but we also do have an incubator arm where we get involved with projects even at a pre-seed level. And this is where we have to hold a lot of hands and kind of help them grow, from zero to hero.
Got it. And how are you, like, what kind of sentiment are you seeing in like the community you've built and like the companies that you're helping to grow with obviously the current climate with crypto? Like, I mean, everyone always focuses on price. That's part of the value proposition, but it is a natural conversation starter where, you're at not, the all-time lows, but, I think it's like down 60-70% from like, the last
Easy.
6-7 months.
We're definitely in a very dark period. It is a bear market. There's a lot that's going on. Even our own token is down 60-70%, like what you mentioned. But honestly, this is a period that we actually embrace. We are in this for the long term. This particular period allows us to actually operate in a more stable state. Running a business in a bull market, a lot of things happen very quickly. And sometimes you're kind of forced to make decisions, in split seconds, right? And sometimes we may not do the necessary due diligence before we actually make some of those investment decisions. At this point in time, it's a lot easier to hire. It's a lot easier to get partnership. Everyone has a lot more time. So it's actually a perfect opportunity for us to build. And that's what primarily my team has been focusing on. This also kind of helps us weed out the projects that are serious and kind of put that energy and focus and capital into those projects, help them build out during this period. And when the tide rises, we'll rise with them.
Yeah, there's that saying in crypto, which is, this is the time that defines who are the tourists and who are the settlers, like who's here for the long run and who's
That's
just here for like a good time. And if you look historically, like what's happening in the world of crypto blockchain, like the same thing happened when the internet started, where you had the dot-com boom, but right after that is when some of the best companies of our generation were created because of exactly what you said. Projects were done a bit more carefully, talent might have been easier to kind of acquire, capital, all that good stuff. So I guess in terms of Enjinstarter, like Enjinstarter, I know you kind of described it as a combination of different things. You chose specifically, I mean, you're marketing that's almost like an entertainment company in blockchain, but part of that is gaming. And one of the things or challenges that crypto has with mainstream adoption is getting a lot of people to use it. And gaming seems to be that one thing a lot of people think would be, it's going to create that breakthrough for mainstream adoption of crypto. Is that one of the reasons why you started the company? Is that something that you think is actually going to be true?
Sure. So we started Enjinstarter, and why we're called Enjinstarter is primarily because Engine, which is our early investor, they are one of the OGs in the blockchain gaming space. And blockchain gaming was a very hot trend last year. It all began because of this concept of play to earn. And it became a solution during the pandemic period where people were kind of stuck at home and there was no form of employment, and they started spending a lot more time in these games, and they could actually earn income, and that helped them replace a lot of the lost income that a lot of people were going through. But that was just kind of where things started, right? So everyone started getting into the space to make a side hustle. But now we're starting to see a lot more trends popping up, things like move to earn, where it's pegged around your fitness and you actually start to earn crypto. And I think it all reflects where we are from a society or humanity perspective, because we are literally just coming out of a pandemic. We all now can have freedom. We can actually go out, we can travel, and mapping to that lifestyle is where a lot of these startups are riding on certain trends or micro trends that are happening. One reason why we decided to focus on gaming is that it's got entertainment value, right? And that's very recession proof. A lot of other businesses, when the markets are down, people cut the budget. But we saw gaming as one of those sticky areas that people would still need to consume. We see it as very much part of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So even if someone loses their job, they're going to be staying at home. They're either going to be on Netflix or playing a game, and that's space that we were hoping to enter into. But we knew also that it's a very new and nascent space, and we were seeing a transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And the primary value that Web3 brings in a gaming perspective is that whatever digital asset that you own, you can actually have full ownership of that, and you can potentially bring it from one environment to another environment. And the last key area is we saw that metaverses were going to be a big trend, right? We saw Facebook renaming themselves, and we believe that the metaverse of the future is going to be built on gaming engines. So it's primarily built on Unity or Unreal, and these are engines that are powering game development today. They will eventually power metaverses, and gaming is that key industry that's kind of accelerating our transition into the metaverse. And that's kind of why we're so excited about the space. We invest in games, we invest in infrastructure projects, we also invest in NFTs, which again is a very, very critical component of this transition from Web 2 to Web 3. So yeah, those are some of the things that we invested.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of interesting things about gaming. Like, people already game for hours, and if you play like World of Warcraft or something like that, it's very hard to cash in your digital assets. You have to like find some hack around that. Or I think there's a couple of players where it made the news where like Microsoft, I forgot which game, this person spent like hours and hours of their life on this platform, and they couldn't actually they just lost all their digital assets. So they spent a lot of money and time, and they had nothing to show for it. So I definitely think there's a lot of value in transitioning from Web 2 to Web 3 for gaming, for all the reasons you mentioned. I think another thing, actually, before we get into that with Enjinstarter, just for like people that will end up listening to this that are not as familiar with, how money or revenue in this world works, how does Enjinstarter plan to make money or revenue in the short term and long term?
Sure. So our primary business model is through investments. So we invest anything from 25K to 100K into these games. And when we're ready to take an exit, that's where we actually commercialize our investments. We also do provide advisory to Web 2 companies that are looking and coming into Web 3. And we also do work with a few large corporates who want to get into Web 3 a lot earlier. We do take a consulting approach where we come up with a blueprint into the various opportunities. So we have multiple sources of revenue opportunities. But at the end of the day, we're an ecosystem builder, and our intent is to help more people participate in this space. And that's how we actually secure these allocations. We allow a community to participate in some of these exciting opportunities together with us. And then everyone gets the benefit from that. But like any investment, it's high risk and it's high return. During the bull market last year, there were projects that we had put on our platform that even gave our community as much as a 40x return on their investment. Of course, all that is gone, and currently it's all the settlers, right? The tourists have clearly left the place. But the guys that are with us, they're committed. They're holding on to some of these tokens. They're working very, very closely with our portfolio companies. They organize events both online and offline. And eventually, we believe that the token prices will go up and everyone gets to make some money out of that.
So there's a lot of positive going on for your company. You raise money, you're building a lot of traction with companies that are part of your ecosystem. What's maybe like a challenge you're facing at this time that, what's the challenge you're facing at this time?
There's just not enough time in the day to do everything that we want to do. We're primarily a virtual company, and we have teammates that are distributed all around the world, from the US to India to Philippines. So yeah, we're pretty much working 18 hours a day. With the whole Zoom culture, you just take calls one after one, And yeah, there's just not enough time to kind of deliver all the things that we want to do. And this is where we're actually looking at it more from a collaborative perspective, always inviting people who are passionate about what we're building to come and work with us, to collaborate with us, or even just to partner with us, for a short time frame, so that we can actually create a lot more things together.
Are you seeing, like, especially in the world of tech, competition for talent has always been fierce, and Web3 is where a ton of talent's going, a lot of money's going there. So I guess one of my questions is that an issue for you, or like, are you kind of getting the talent that you want to get, or like, is it just like crazy out there?
It's definitely crazy out there, but thankfully there's a great resonation that's happening globally. We are, speaking to people who want to get into Web3, are excited to leverage the lead that we have in the space, and to find new ways to kind of work together. But these days, conversations with potential hires, it's not about how long they're going to be with us. It's a lot about what is it that they're going to get from us, what is it that we're going to be able to provide. And mentally, you can tell that a lot of people are just looking anything from 3 months, 6 months to even 2 years, right? No one really looks too far down the horizon when it comes to looking for a gig. But I guess, we need to adapt. We need to be nimble to be able to embrace a whole lot of this. But to answer your question, definitely hiring talent, especially senior talent, is tough. We're fighting large companies, and there's a massive talent crunch there. So yeah, it's definitely a lot tougher. What we're doing is we're going further downstream, speaking to the youth, training them. We're working with partners who have conversion programs for developers who are looking at getting into Web3. And we're working with these guys so that we get access to talent a lot quicker, earlier, and faster.
Yeah, I guess with, like you talked about, there's a battle going on for talent, but even like the nature of work is going to be changing, right? Like you talked about DAOs and like, the future of companies might be structured all as DAOs. I mean, I don't know if that'll actually happen and how far away that is, but I guess I'm just curious on your thoughts about like the nature of work, because you talked about people not thinking too far ahead, and DAOs will enable people to kind of jump into projects and exit and get liquidity fairly easily. Is this something that you think will come sooner than people think?
For sure. But there is still a lot of infrastructure, tools that needs to be built. But I clearly believe that DAOs are the future. How soon? It's a bit hard to predict. But I think people will come and work in their terms based on the passion that they have or the interest that they have. But it's going to be very short engagements before they decide to take a deeper plunge. And I think it's a win-win for everybody, right? That we've definitely, the pandemic really helped us move from the traditional model where you needed to have a physical office and get the whole team to sit there, to the model where I've not met a bulk of my teammates, right? Because they're all based in another country. And recently, when we actually met them face to face, it was such a refreshing feeling. But the reality is, we need to make the mission the boss. And every day we constantly look at what is it that we need to do, what are the resources that we need, and we need to look at it from a both real world perspective as well as a virtual perspective.
Got it. And in the world of Web3, I feel like there's just so much happening so fast, and so information overload. So like for me, I constantly try to, like, there's different YouTube channels, newsletters where I try to consume information to learn. But like for you, are you participating in that, or are you just heads down focused on what you're doing and kind of focused on your world of gaming and like blockchain, or are you trying to keep your eyes out and like what other stuff's happening out there?
Yeah, so we constantly attend events. We're constantly doing attending webinars like what we're doing today. In Web3, we're at that phase where every day new things are going to be happening, and if we don't keep up pace, we will miss alpha, right? And a lot of this is also happening from a very ground up perspective. It is where we are actually, getting into discussions, getting into, intellectual conversations where we're collectively looking for solutions. And I feel that that's primarily where we are today, and we constantly need to do that, right? And this is where we start to gather a lot more collective intelligence, and the industry kind of evolves from that perspective.
And you obviously do a lot with work. We've talked a lot about that. You work, you said 18-hour days. How do you, I mean, I don't like the word, but let's just call it balance. How do you manage to kind of keep that healthy balance between working, sleeping, staying healthy, whatever it is, to kind of maintain everything else that's kind of happening in your life? Or is that just not possible right now at the stage of company you're in?
I would say that, yeah, I mean, definitely health is an important thing. Everything that we're doing is for the kids. And, if I'm not around, what's the point, right? But, we are in that exciting phase where, we run on passion, we run on the energy of others, and we've been doing it without much sleep. But, it's definitely not ideal, but, it's something that we're going on because we're just so excited about what we're doing.
And I noticed even outside of what you do for work, you also do a lot of volunteering. I think in 2021, you were awarded the Public Service Medal for your contributions to the Singapore government. So what is this award about, and what was the criteria, and how did your name get put in the pot, essentially?
Sure. So it's exactly a year ago that I actually got that award. It came with 10 years of service to the government. I'm constantly looking at giving back, and one key area that I was supporting is by advising different government agencies on policies, digital engagement, which is my area of focus. And I was serving 10 years as the national matchmaker locally in Singapore. I was involved with an organization that was kind of promoting healthy marriages, and that's one area of focus that I did. And that's kind of how I was given the award after 10 years of service, as a recognition of the work that I put through. And it was great to receive it. It's always good to be appreciated, and this time being appreciated by the country that you are contributing to was something that I was really happy with. And yeah, there was a bit about that award.
And I guess for you as well, just for people listening, because Singapore, I've been there, a beautiful country, seems like very business friendly. So with
for sure. Yeah.
Is that one of the reasons kind of why you stayed there so long and set up your business there? Is it because it's very friendly towards business in general, or even blockchain crypto? Tell us about that.
Yes, I was born and bred here, so not lived overseas anything more than 3-4 weeks. So this is home, but definitely to answer your question, it's definitely the most business friendly place that you can. I mean, you can literally start a company online. Getting a bank account in traditional businesses is a lot easier. In crypto businesses, not so much. But it's also kind of this melting pot where people from all around the world come with the hope of building businesses. And we've got access to Southeast Asia, where you can travel anything from an hour to 30 minutes, 3 hours. So definitely a lot of access, and the government is very, very stable. So policies, when implemented, tend to stay for quite some time. So it's a great business environment. And for the longest time, it's also been a crypto hub, right? People from all around the world come here for the peace and security that Singapore offers. And yeah, that's all the key foundations that anyone needs to actually build a successful business. And that's what I've been fortunate to have.
Awesome. Well, the final question is, I guess, with Enjinstarter, and I guess yourself as well, what do you, looking forward in the next 3 to 5 years, what would success look like for both you personally and Enjinstarter in that time period?
Sure. So Enjinstarter, like what I mentioned earlier, we're a community builder. And when a community is happy, that's a great success for us. For me, at the end of the day, we want to expand globally, which is what we are currently building upon, so that we can actually create this network of talent, of projects, of investors participating with us. And the way that I see it is, eventually the community will come in to participate. They will come in to invest. They will be playing a bigger role in what we are doing. We're just kind of that catalyst to get this started. And that's really where we see ourselves. We're working hard every day to make ourselves redundant, so that one day the brand lives on its own. The community makes those key decisions on what's best for the community. And this allows us to actually also invest in as many up and coming projects as we can, and we get to participate in their growth and their success. And that's primarily where we see ourselves in the next 5 years.
Awesome. Well, I mean, Prakash, thank you for, joining and sharing your story, all from your, beginning with Yoke and the acquisition to the interesting work you're doing with Web3. If somebody ends up listening to this, whether it's live or, after the fact with the recording, they want to reach out to you because they find your story inspirational. They maybe want to be part of what you're doing at Enjinstarter. What's the best way to reach out to you?
LinkedIn would probably be the best. It's a good way to get connected. It's a good way for me to kind of understand a bit about their background, their skill sets. Happy to start that conversation, happy to stay connected. If there's anyone out there who's listening and, they want to begin this journey into Web3, and they want to bounce ideas and maybe validate the ideas that they're looking for, definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to spend some time and maybe guide them on the right direction that they need to take, and also share some advice on what we've learned in the School of Hard Knocks, so that they don't need to make the same mistake that we made. Awesome.
I know somebody from the chat, I think Nilu, they added you on LinkedIn and they had some interesting comments as well. So I'm sure you'll see some requests coming in, Prakash.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for everyone tuning in to the July edition of the Tamil Innovators Spotlight. And thank you again, Prakash. Have a good night, everyone.